Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Unfiltered Experience every Friday night here, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here, I am Christopher Rausch, along with Mr.
Scott Goyette.
What's going on, brother?
I'm sweating. I don't know what the deal is, but we have this second part of our house. It's a little add-on. It's usually super cold in here, and I don't know what went down, but I walked in here and it's really hot, and I didn't have time to change anything. So I'm probably gonna start having little sweat marks on me because I could feel it coming. So, but it's good. It's good. It's like a little sauna. I'm gonna lose some weight back here tonight.
Nice. You're already looking thinner, dude. Your face is looking thinner.
It's from right now. I actually have been sweating for the last 20 minutes. I'm sweating. This is from right now. I lost about 10 pounds in here.
See, that's why you need a bandana, man. It's like when I'm sweating, I'm like, okay, at least I'm not going on my face. At least it's not going on my face.
I can feel it. When you feel the beads starting right here, I'm going to start sweating. And I've got a fan. I could probably turn it on, but then you hear the noise. You hear the whoosh, whoosh, whoosh.
Exactly. What's up, Kick-Ass Larry? Good evening. Good evening. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boy, we have an amazing show for you tonight. Here we are in the first part of January. We're celebrating this week. Lots of different things, of course, here in our great nation. We have a new President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. So we're excited about that. We're excited moving forward with the country and moving forward with our lives and bringing you guys with us. So as always, please engage with us in the comments, ask us questions. Our guest tonight is definitely going to be one that you're going to want to ask questions of and engage with. Yes. So, man, it's been a great week, Scott. How's it been for you?
It's been good. It's been super interestingly productive. You said the same thing. I saw on one of your posts on social media that just good things are happening. And we talk about this all the time. When you start to align the heart and the mind, and it's really in alignment, and you really start dialing in on your why, the vehicles to make that why happen show up. And so we say it, we preach it, we live it. And we even saw a beautiful poem by, what was her name again? Was it Gorman? What's her first name? The amazing young girl, Angela. Is it Angela Gorman?
Yeah.
So I love the fact that she talks about being the light, because we constantly are talking about becoming the light. Don't sit here and teach everybody what to do, be it. And I've noticed in both of us, a lot of our, people who are in the Unfiltered crew family, I've seen it. I've watched people elevating because they're becoming the light, and they're not just telling everyone what to do. They're being the change that we've talked about. And it's not just exciting, it's beautiful to see it in us and others. And I see a lot more of that in our country happening, and I'm excited.
Absolutely. No, I'm excited too. It's brand new beginnings. I always believe in that. And just, hopefully I've seen a lot of people that have, behind the scenes have kind of just said, you know what, it is what it is. It was what it was. Let's move forward. And I've been really pleased to see some of that stuff going on. But yeah, it's just been a great week. And personally, like we were just talking about before we went on air, the situation that I've been experiencing this week, and I've been telling you about it, and I'm glad you're getting on there, is Clubhouse. Man, that has literally restored my faith in the fact that there are a lot of people out there who are genuinely interested in building one another up, pouring into other people who need it. I have been witness to so many conversations this week. I have listened to so many amazing people giving their time hour after hour, giving business advice, putting them in contact with other people to get their business going. It has literally been like, holy shit, a huge shot in the arm for what, this world needs right now. And it's amazing to be a part of that. So I just look at that and hope that spills out into the rest of the world, because it seems like such an exciting time for this coming along, and people helping each other, and people are just, even people with money are just like, man, I'm getting such a thrill out of doing this personally, and they're just realizing the bigger picture of why we're here and what we're doing. So I'm pretty excited about that way that's going. And I know that you and I are going to crush it in there and just help a lot of people, because people are hurting and they're being vulnerable and they're getting help and they're getting poured into. And it's been super exciting for me. So, and plus the good thing for all you guys out there in Unfiltered Land is we've got some amazing guests coming up. Holy crap. We've got tonight, we're going to jump into tonight in a second, but next week we got Jimmy Dennis, who was on death row for 25 years. Just recently got released, I believe 2017. He's going to be on here for a special 2-hour episode to talk about what it was like to be on death row for 25 years, what it was like in solitary confinement, what it was like to come out, what it was like to keep hope and faith alive during those times, and still creating music and coming out and becoming an amazing individual. So we're excited about that. And then the week after that, we have, you guys may know her, you guys may not know her, but I know her and she's pretty fucking cool. Forbes Riley is going to be here on our show February 5th, rocking and rolling. If you don't know who she is, go Google her. She is a bottle rocket of energy. She's got a lot of passion. She's got immense knowledge. She's grown the infomercial business over $2 billion. She's just magnificent. I met her again on on Clubhouse. So again, we got some exciting stuff coming up. But Scott, please do us the honor of introducing our guest tonight.
I'll do it. So one of the things that Chris and I talk about a lot is we talk about creating an identity, and creating that identity by really plugging in your why. And that why is also called your mission, and it's your mission, your purpose. The other thing that's super important is your vision, and your vision is what we're seeing. It's kind of that point where we're going to say, I'm going to move in this direction. And then of course the universe takes over and might move us in different places, but we're always looking to that vision. One of the things that we sometimes forget is when we're trying to find that vision, sight is something that's so important, right? I've got to see where I'm going. I've got to get in my car and drive. I've got to do all these things. And these two eyes, they mean so much to us because we've taken them for granted. Well, our guest tonight has done more than 99% of the people I know, and he lost his sight at 22 years old. Beautiful human being, literally one of the most amazing people you will ever meet. Stay here for this full time. Share this right now. Get your friends on here. Welcome, my good friend, Randy Pierce.
Randy Pierce in the house. Welcome to the Unfiltered Experience. Randy, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. It's been a great week. It's a good night. Came over some technical difficulties, and hopefully it's not anxiety for this interview that's driving that temperature up on you, Scott. But I'm glad to be joining you.
No, I'm good. There's something wrong with the back of our room, and you know what I was just realizing too? I also put this this light on me too. Maybe I should turn that up, but it's all right.
You know,
you're like a star, man. You got the lights, you got the chain. You're good. You're kicking it.
You know, I love your message of, become the light. But what jumped out of my mind as I was listening to you guys before coming on was this notion that when you're trying to become the light, when you're trying to figure out the light, sometimes all we do is reflect it, right? We hear what works for us, we see what works for us, and we just share that out. And that's a part of the journey to learning what your own light is that you can put out there, right? As you collect all the light that matters and shine it out for others. So reflecting it is good. And to also understand, right, that the light is always framed by darkness. That's the nature of what light and darkness have as a relationship. So the more we can put out there, that's the further back we drive that darkness. So I just, I care a lot about light, obviously, because of my inability to even see it now, but to understand what it means and feels in the greater sense.
100%. And those words are going to start to come up more and more is, understanding what is light and darkness. And again, I love the fact that you just brought up that for light to exist, we've got to have darkness, and embracing those shadows and embracing all pieces of who we are. And that doesn't just include as an individual, that includes as the collective. Some people are going to make mistakes. There's going to be darkness, but that is allowing us to create opportunity for beautiful growth. And I mean beautiful growth. There's stagnancy when we just sit in the light for too long, and there's darkness that's needed to grow. So let's chat about that a little bit, because, figuratively, in many ways, you experience darkness, and you could sit here and say, that's the end of my vision. I'm not going to do anything else. But not you, not at all. I mean, maybe for a moment, but it might have been a stumbling block, but it certainly wasn't going to keep you down. Let's go back to when you were 22 years old, and this journey really began in a different way than you started it.
Sure. So I was certainly sitting on top of the world. I was freshly out of college, right? I had a great job for about a year. And in just 2 weeks, I lost all of the sight in my right eye completely, and half of the sight in my left eye in that first 2 weeks. And that was pretty devastating, right? I'm legally blind, and I don't even know what that means. And I feel helpless and hopeless. And that's a natural way to feel. And, contrary to what you said, I did give up. I did feel despondent and angry and resentful. And what you also said, though, is right, I didn't stay there very long. And that's the trick, because when anything happens to us, we have a choice. We can feel all those awful things. We can quit, but we can turn that around. And how long we take before we choose that's up to us. But all the good things are more likely to start the point that we start turning it around and saying, I'm not going to focus on what I can't do. I'm going to focus on what I can do. And I'm going to focus on saying, if there's something I can't do and it's important to me, well, why can't I? And more importantly, how can I actually just do it? What's actually stopping me? How do I turn that adversity into a catalyst for the growth that you talked about moments ago? Because the lack of stagnancy is growth. That's how we all become better. And adversity is one of the ways, whether it's negative adversity or positive adversity.
I was just talking with somebody like 15 minutes ago about that very aspect, Randy, and thank you so much for sharing that. It's beautiful when you think about your journey and talking about the adversity and having the choice to choose, whether what we say here is whether life is happening for you or to you. What were some of the first obstacles that you really had to overcome, aside from your mindset? Obviously, you have to become aware of what it is that's happening with you. But what were some of the first obstacles you had to overcome, and what was your mindset about overcoming them in the moment?
Yeah, spot on. My mindset was the first challenge, right? I felt like I couldn't. And then as I started looking and exploring, then I had to get into this mindset of I'm so independent that letting people teach me, letting people help me was something I tried to avoid. I resisted, and there was this sort of denial in that process. And even when they helped me, it was sort of a token. All right, I'm allowing this, but I'm not really committed. You want to get things accomplished, you got to commit. It's all in. Because when you're partially doing it, when you're not really giving yourself to it, you're shorting yourself every bit of that focus and attention and dedication. Well, you're going to get that same lack of result from that. So I had to really commit to say that it's there and to give all into those efforts. So that was the first part. And then the second part was realizing how many people that weren't necessarily on my team helping, that were going to be some of those people whispering the hold you back, people that were going to say you can't as well. And they limited me. And if I listened to them, they were going to stop me. And if I let them get in their way, they'd stop me. One of my favorite quotes is, I don't mind you telling me it's impossible. Just get out of my way while I'm doing it, would you?
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
You have no idea. I mean, when you just said that, I'm sure that Chris got the same goosebumps that I did, because I could say that 1,000 times. Tell me whatever you want, but I'm going to do it. Man.
I like the meme that says, tell me I can't do it, and I'm going to do it twice as much, and I'm going to take fucking pictures of it too. I share that all the time, and people are like, yeah, that's what I'm about. That's what I'm about. I'm like, yeah, you got to bring your A game. I mean, that's the thing in life, and that's something that Scott and I have been preaching and teaching over the last, ever since COVID started, is the fact that you have to find your inner strength. You have to find your inner determination, your why, your how, to be able to, bounce back from whatever setback that you had. I think Les Brown says a setback is a setup for a comeback. Right. And I look at it that way. I know you look at it that way, but so many people, unfortunately, just see themselves in that victim mindset. Talk to us a little about that. I mean, coming from your perspective and hearing people bitch, piss, and moan, I can imagine that sometimes you'd be like, oh, really? You're going to bitch about that when I'm sitting here with this? What advice do you offer people in any situation where they're looking at themselves as a victim of some sort of situation that's happened in their life?
First, I try not to give advice, because when I'm giving advice, the challenge there is, people reject advice, because why are you telling me what to do? You don't know what I'm going through. I'll share my opinions. I'll share my experience, and I'm going to let them connect the dots, because when people have to do a little bit of that work, I think they're more likely to see it and take it and pull it in for themselves. If I do too much of that work, even in the giving of the advice, I think they're already holding back a little bit. Mm-hmm. I certainly share that with people. I do think you get out what you put in, but I say this, right? It's the age-old quote. Is it Brian Tracy who says, life is 90%, life is 10% about what happens to you and 90% how you choose to respond, right?
Yep.
And I really believe that. And the way I phrase it is this, right? I didn't choose to go blind. It's happened to me. We influence our life with everything we do. And I buy into that, try to make all those positive influences. But when something happens to you, lots of people tell you got a choice in how you respond, and that's empowering. Well, never mind that it's empowering. The reality is that the choice that you make and how you respond, that choice is going to have a bigger impact on your life than most challenges ever could. And that's accountability in a double-edged way, right? The bad news is, that means your choice, if you don't make good choices and it leads to bad places, that's your fault. But the good news is, if you make good choices, you're going to get rewards, and that is also to your credit. So think about that. When you make those choices, you're the one who's responsible for that. Right? So my life, the succinct part of that, my life isn't about my blindness. It's about all the choices I made and how I responded. And I have a great life. Does that apply to you? Not necessarily. It depends on the choices you make, right? And what your challenges are.
So I wasn't sure Scott was going to say something. No, I love what you said, Randy, because I think about it in terms of, I have been through my things, and I have helped other people go through their things. And ultimately, what I have found that gets us through the quickest is having gratitude for what we do have. so oftentimes we're brought up in a society of what we want, like Christmas. What do you want for Christmas? What do you want for your birthday? You know, we want. Oh, so I have to get money to get the things that I want, as opposed to doing things to get the feeling that I want and the fulfillment that I want. You know, so I love that we have to, you know, incorporate that into our life to make sure that it gives it meaning far beyond everything else that we try to measure our life from, if I'm saying that correctly. Would you agree with that?
I do. In fact, I looked at it as kind of the pillars of happiness. I kind of like there's 3 pillars of happiness. There's short term, middle range, and long term. And right, those indulgences of want, those are the short term, right? You know, a good piece of chocolate or a cup of coffee for me, that's great, but that's where you get the overindulgence from too. But it's not going to last long. Right? Some of the short terms are over quick, but the medium terms, those are sort of the things that are your passions, right? For me, hiking or running, and those things I really enjoy, and I can get enjoyment that lasts a little bit longer. But the longest lasting, the things that really sustain you, those are your purposes. Those are the things that give you meaning. Those are the things that give you mattering, right? What makes you feel like you matter in this world? And those are all happiness, but they also are what drive you and lift you up.
So here's a question for you. I mean, we look at so many people in the art world or in the sports world or really in any world, any occupation, that most of the amazing stories come from some type of trauma or some type of massive setback. You know, you listen to the best music and then you hear the story behind it. You're like, oh my God, you had to go through all that to write that? Or the only reason, you know, I'm this good at athletics is because of this horrific thing that happened to me. And we hear it all the time. What can we tell people? Because this is one of the hardest things I think to happen is we need that outside influence, that just somebody cracking the whip, or we need that oftentimes that, you know, getting hit by a freight train to learn the lesson. I'm a big fan to believe there's no bypassing. You need the lesson to smack you in the face, but is there anything that we can do or we can share? And this is something Chris and I try to do a lot. We don't give advice either. We give tools. Yeah. I guess the question is there any tool we could give somebody that if they're ready to receive it, something that you could suggest to really help them kickstart and go find that brilliance that we're always talking about, instead of needing that freight train to hit them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, sure. No, I think there's 2 pieces of that. I think there are some success stories that we don't hear about the freight train. And the reason we don't hear about it is because it's not a great story. The success is all we catch.
Bingo.
Right. But I think in the case of why the success stories that have a freight train stand out is because that story has some resonance. My own story, I was successful, I was happy, but I don't think my life would have had anywhere near the amazing experiences that I do have if I hadn't gone blind. And that was my freight train, to use your analogy. But here's the thing, that was the adversity, that was the catalyst that made me say, I either have to quit or have to grow. And once I realized I could grow, I realized just what's the limit to growing? I can keep growing and I can keep becoming something better than I was before. That's what happened to me. That's adversity that brings it about. And I kind of mentioned earlier, positive adversity is something that can do that. I didn't have to go blind. I didn't have to have a negative adversity to bring that about, but I needed adversity. I needed something that made me not stagnate, but grow. And what you have to do that is you have to have goals. You have to set them and you have to commit them. And they have to mean something to you, obviously, because you have to dedicate to them, right? And you have to make targets that you can reach and work towards. That's what I call positive adversity. That's what I call goals. And sometimes people are intimidated by that, but you got to suppress the intimidation, because if it matters to you, it takes that adversity, it takes that challenge. Just pick something good, because it's going to get you what you want without you having to take a freight train running over you.
So fire.
It's right. Yes.
Fire.
It's perfect. It's perfect. And so I feel like a good chunk of what you're saying is really a deep alignment to your why or to your purpose. And then that positive adversity almost kind of like lays out itself, because the second I said that the reason I'm doing this, and I want to talk about this because you and I had a nice conversation about this last week too. My deepest purpose isn't to be an amazing dad, isn't to be an amazing husband, isn't to be a great friend to you guys. It's to get the message in my heart that's been delivered from source to the world. And that message is really all about finding your brilliance and extending this sense of self. And that's the simplest way to put it. And so in other words, the world's not about Scott. It's not about the three of us. It's not about our greater tribe. It's not about our country. It's about everything in existence. And how do we get every perspective point, person, individual to find their brilliance? That's what I'm here to do. And so you brought up a really beautiful point too. You know, a lot of people would have stopped in their purpose of saying, I'm here to be a teacher to people. I'm here to be a great husband. I'm here. But I made a point and I said, you know what? It's bigger than that. It's deeper than that. And I love what you said. Tell everybody you said to me, because you brought up a very good point here.
So is this right? I don't know what each person's goal or objective or need is. They know that. I can't be them, right? If their brilliance is to connect people, or if their brilliance is to be something different, how can I determine that for them? Right? I don't know that. And I don't remember what I exactly said to you.
I'll tell you what it is you remember. So you had a really good point. You go, how would your daughter feel when you said, you don't have to be the perfect dad?
Sure.
How would your wife feel when you said, I don't have to be the perfect husband? How would Chris feel when you said, well, I don't need to be a great friend to Chris? And again, I'm not saying those aren't things that I will be, but I'll be that because I found my brilliance and because I'm being the light. And that was the whole point about that Gorman poem. Was she said, be the light. And that's my point. When I become the light, Chris organically benefits from our relationship, my wife organically. And so when you make one thing paramount, like the relationship paramount, without the brilliance, that can never be as strong as a relationship if you're living your brilliance. That was my challenge. And your point to me was be very cautious with that, because do you make if the other people aren't ready to hear that? You remember this conversation? And I was trying to figure out
how it's going to be interpreted or perceived by other people. It doesn't make it less true, but it could make it painful for someone to hear.
Sure.
Yeah. And part of your brilliance is that you do care about how they feel. Right? As people who interact with people, we know our words, our actions, our deeds all have an impact on them. And if we're trying to help them get to their brilliance, and the first thing we do is something that maybe challenges them in a way that overloads them and pushes them away, that's probably not helpful.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Sometimes. They just, if that stressed you out, you don't even want to hang around me. Man, we are having such a great conversation. I just want to acknowledge everybody here in the house tonight. We got Larry Schneider in the house. Thank you very much for being here. He says, hi, guys. What's up, Jay? What's up, Jay Dukeshire? This guy is a phenomenal dude, kicking ass, taking names, making an impact everywhere. He's going to be on the show as well.
Nice. Hi, Jay.
Just a super, super cool dude. Darlene Eaton in the house, our Unfiltered crew, most definitely. She's like, welcome evening, Randy. Jay says, so great. We're talking about this. And Fernanda Varaga McLaughlin says, hi, Chris and Scott, I'm back. And Jacqueline Rose says, never do a pity party. Welcome, Randy. You and Chris rock. And Scott rocks too.
It's okay. I got to be left out sometime.
No.
Strength is my resolve.
Okay, so Jacqueline Rose. Jacqueline, thank you so much for being here and spending your time with us. Jacqueline is asking, how do you kick your goals in life up a notch, and how to get the most out of life? I have something in my way right now.
Who's that for? You throwing that at me?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a question for you.
I wish I could throw this video at you. I was speaking at a girls' soccer camp, and they said to me, "Hey, how do you play soccer?" And I'm like, "Well, I hadn't played in a long time, and we talked about a strategy for it." And then they said, "Well, show us." So we had to go out and get the ball that has the bell in it, and we went back, and I got this great video. Coach and I worked on it a little bit, and it's got me shooting a soccer ball, taking the pass, and firing it up into the corner. Now, there was a take before that where I had a miserable shot, because you're going to have some failures along the way, right? You got to understand failures a step in the journey sometimes, but failure's temporary as long as you don't quit. How you step it up is you set the goals, not because you think it's easy. You set the goals on the edge of your comfort zone, right? Because when you're on the edge of your comfort zone, that's when you're challenging yourself. That's when because if you're comfortable, it's harder to grow, because it's easier to just sit back, relax, and be stagnant. When it feels a little uncomfortable, that, to me, when I know that my goals are stepping up where they belong.
Damn. Woo. What do you guys think of that? Does that answer your question, Jack?
We should find that video. Randy, what we can do after is we can put that video link in there. If it's on YouTube or wherever, we'll put that in.
It's on my YouTube channel, on my adventure playlist. So we absolutely have it. You can grab that easy.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I want to see that, actually. That sounds really cool. I don't care how many takes it says. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, that sounds good. Robert Broker's in the house. Says, hi, everybody. What's going on? We also have KSC Matt Schmidt in the house. First time here, first time listening. Welcome. Thank you very much for being here at the Unfiltered Experience. And
she's a big partner of mine. We do a lot of work together.
Oh,
awesome,
nice.
awesome. Well, thank you for being here. And Jay says, fucking right. Sorry about that, Randy, but this is the Unfiltered Experience, so it's unfiltered. You know, when I was thinking about talking with you, I was trying to come up with different questions. As somebody who gets interviewed quite a bit, I like it when interviewers come up with different questions. Talk to us about, you know, you have done some pretty miraculous events in your life, and I want to dig into that. And you talked about having people in your life that are going to support you and they're going to be there for you. What was it like beginning to say that, listen, I want to go do these major things? What was it like dealing with the people around you? And how did you overcome that in the persuasion department to be able to say, hey, listen, I got this, I could do this. Please don't make me any more less capable than I already possibly am. You know, talk to us a little bit that emotional standpoint.
You know, like I said, first person you have to convince it's yourself. You have to change your mindset, right? Sometimes you get that inner voice that doubts yourself. And I always say to people, right, when you hear that inner voice, realize that if you're listening, that's not you. You're the one listening. So take control and overwrite that voice. And the way you overwrite that voice is by saying, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm going to speak my own truth and say what you want. This is what I am. This is what I can do. This is what I want to do. Right. So once you do that, then you start doing the things that you want. And I'm not a risk taker. I'm a problem solver. So I don't just recklessly go out and do these things. I try to figure out what is it that I need to do? What do I have to work on? So I'm always showing steps of the way the people that I'm working with. And, you know, we said earlier, right, if somebody says it's impossible, I don't mind as long as they get out of the way while I'm doing it. Those aren't the people that I'm going to spend time convincing. If they're really that convinced, I'm going to find people who want to be part of it first because they're just easier. Now, fortunately, that's not really hard. My friends generally say, let's go, let's try things. What I have to do is tone them down. Now, I share that, right? There's my friends who said, let's go do a Tough Mudder. And I naively said, what's a Tough Mudder? But what I have to do with my friends is make sure I understand what they are. I have to think about them. Some of my friends say, hey, this is a little dangerous. And what they really mean is, Randy, you're going to break your neck if you do this wrong. And some of my friends say, Randy, this is a little dangerous. And what they really mean is it's really cake and they're just over nervous. So I have to be able to gauge who I'm dealing with too. So what you have to do is, this is what I think about team. And Schmitty probably knows where I'm going is, but team has all different types of people in it. And you have to kind of identify them, right? Team is an acronym for that. T, who's trusted and true, right? Who gives you stuff that you can tell anything to and really know what you're going to get. E, who are the eager, enthusiastic people? They're just always going to say, yeah, we can do this. We got this. But maybe you got to worry about whether they're too zealous, right? And then A, who's your accountability partners that hold you when you're not pushing yourself enough? And then M, who are your mentors? Who are your coaches? Who are the ones who are teaching you on how to do those things? And you got to have there's plenty of others, but those core four take you really far in life. And that's what I did. I started identifying those. And I started incorporating them. And then you start finding you're playing those roles for other people because giving and receiving is part of that process.
I love that. And I've quoted you and given you credit on that quite a few times. When I asked you, can I use that? Because I love it. I love it. It's a beautiful acronym for resiliency because people always assume that resiliency is an individual sport. And I'm like, no. Resiliency comes from your interaction and connection with others. I mean, let's face it. Somebody might say, well, you have more support systems than other people with being blind. Like, it's just an illusion. There's nobody here. I mean, who built my house? I certainly didn't. That took a team. Who built the car? Who's the person who trusted me to get in front of students or in front of, there's a lot of people who brought me to this place. And it's that whole team. And I love it. The other thing that you said that I thought was beautiful and it got me to think is you talked about being a problem solver versus a risk taker. And that rang true. That it made me think real quick because I'm always thinking I'm a risk taker. But more to your point, I might be the first one to jump off the cliff, but I don't always tell people. I was walking up the hill. I looked. I knew there was nothing underneath that. I'm very aware. I'm not an idiot. I just do it and then I show it so they think I'm nuts. But the truth is, I'm doing a lot of calculations. So I like that. It's actually being a problem solver. Okay, the problem is these people don't typically like to take chances and these people are scared and I want to get them to overcome their fears. So I'm going to lead them into something that I think is reasonably safe, reasonably. I mean, nothing's perfect. Right. And then get them to do it. The problem, like you said, is overcome your fears and do something big.
And you said it, nothing is safe. It's all about safer, right? So it's risk management. How do we reduce unnecessary risk, manipulate the risk so that the reward and risk ratio is right?
Yeah.
You know, when the first time I climbed Mount Washington, a guy died on this edge the week before I had climbed it. And he climbed standing right near where I was standing. And what happened is he wanted to get a photo. And he walked right to the very edge, and it's wet, it's slippery, and there's a big drop off, and he went over the edge. And that's awful. Now, was that photo worth his life? Of course not. But did he have to risk his life to do that? Of course not. He could have tied off to go take that photo, or he could have taken it from further back. But if it's that good a photo, I'm not saying don't take it. Just tie off to do it, right? Do the risk management.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've got actually we should exchange some pictures because I've done all the presidential peaks and we've gone up there in some of the crazy storm and time, and we had 70-mile-an-hour winds the last time I did it, and we proceeded on a little longer and we got yelled at. You know, the guy who sits up in the weather tower up there, if you come walking in and they told you don't finish when you start, you get quite a reaming. I was like, am I in the military here? I thought it was like freshman year of basketball. I was getting screamed at. I was like, okay. But to that point, that's what he was talking about. Everyone stands next to an edge, gets caught. I mean, there's 70-mile-an-hour winds. That's not some time a mistake. That's where you've got to be a problem solver versus an idiot. And so I'm just being honest. Like, there's been moments where I'm like, I'll show you the video later, but I was being pretty stupid. I was leaning like this. I'm leaning literally, it looks like 45 degrees to get, and the wind's blowing me. And we just kept going because we're like, we're going to do it. No one can stop us. And you know what I'm talking about, Randy, at the end of it, when you're coming up, that's where it gets crazier. If you're already nervous, you know, what was like this fifth peak, by the time you get to Mount Washington, it's scary. Like I was like, did we make a mistake here? And
erase. Sorry. Whoops.
Yeah. But
oh man. So speaking of that, I mean, obviously that is such a milestone, Randy. Talk to us about what it took to prepare for that and to conquer that. I mean, that and your other accomplishments, I think, are absolutely fascinating in a world of so many people saying, you know, I can't exercise, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do this, I can't do that. I mean, what you've done is remarkable. So I'd like to dig into the mindset of that and what you had to do each and every step of the way to keep yourself, like you said, like Scott's going, okay, we could do this, and you know, talk to us a little bit about that process, because I think it'll be fascinating.
So, you know, for me, it's just a gift hike, and that's how I view all of it, right? Every single hike. Because, you know, my condition that took my eyes is a neurological disorder. So it killed my optic nerve. And while I'm totally blind now because both optic nerves died, that's not where it stopped. It attacked my cerebellum. It attacked my sensory nerves. And I was in a wheelchair for 1 year, 8 months, and 21 days, which, right, that makes it clear how I felt about it. And when you can't walk, you realize what a gift it is. Right? When you have something taken away from you, take COVID-19, right? How many of us are going to come out of this and really have a greater appreciation for some of the things that we haven't been able to appreciate? And for me, walking was that. So once I worked my way out of the wheelchair, there was a lot to that. But now I'm walking, I realize what a gift it is. I start walking everywhere I can. I start realizing that hiking is just walking in glorious surroundings. So yeah, there's hard work to be done. And, you know, our mountains here are twisty, rocky, rooty. They're old mountains. They're stream beds. It's right. It's not a trail. It's where the ground kind of erupted and you kind of navigate your way through it. So I have to go slow and patiently sometimes. And I tell my friends, right, expectations. You're hiking with me, we're going to be slower than continental drift in some sections because I got to worry about my footing. Take me out in the winter and I can fly. And, you know, that's the big accomplishment in the Whites, is that I did all 48 in a single winter, which not a lot of people had done. But that's because my trail became smooth. So my biggest challenge went away. So, right, so what most people thought was probably the hardest wasn't the hardest. It's all about perception, right? Hard for somebody, easier for me in some ways, new challenges. But the whole mindset remains the same. Every time I go out, I realize I'm celebrating a gift that I once didn't have. So, right, there's a quote that John Wooten, right, the winningest basketball coach of college history, used to share. He took it from Ben Franklin. He said, we don't plan to fail, we fail to plan. And the whole notion is, what do I need, right? And Schmidt's probably over there laughing right now because this is the fundamental of what I say for everything when you plan your goals. 4 pieces at the trailhead. What do you show up at the trailhead needing? What's your preparation? Right, then on the path, how do you use all the tools and skills that you've practiced, that you've prepared with, so that you can handle the changes. And sometimes there are changes. Sometimes Scott's on his mountain trail and he discovers the winds are 70 miles an hour and it's not safe. And he really does have to say, we're not going to the higher summit today.
Yeah.
And then there's the third part is actually the summit. That's where you celebrate the accomplishment. That's where there's a lot of experience, but you're not done. Because what are you going to do? Live on the summit, right? You got to hike that down. And that's where I say back to base camp is where we return to kind of just have that opportunity to reflect and review on the whole experience. And that's everything. That's not just my hikes. That's my life, right? But absolutely my hikes.
So I love your explanation too. And I asked you the same question when you were talking about Mount Washington and some of the presidential peaks up in the New Hampshire area. I was just visualizing, I've got bad ankles, how easy it is to roll your ankles there. So never mind, the steepness or any of that. It's just, it's an easy place to roll an ankle. And you're 6'4", 200 something pounds. I mean, it's crazy. So I find that insane that you're able to do that. And I think it's beautiful and we talked about it. You've got some amazing ankles and better than I would have to tape my ankles every time I go up because I'm going to be rolling them. But you've also done Machu Picchu, and Kilimanjaro, correct?
Yep.
So those are some insane hikes.
Wow.
Anybody who's ever been to Machu Picchu, first of all, that's an amazing hike if you do like the 5-day journey. But then the steep journey is from Machu Picchu. You've got this amazing other hike that goes literally straight up. I mean, it's crazy. It's short, but it's pretty intense. Was that the hardest one? Was it Kilimanjaro? Tell us about the one that is literally the craziest.
They all have different types of crazy, right? And
Sure.
Kilimanjaro, you get 1 breath per step, right? Because there's so little oxygen. And that means my guides can't talk to me. So I suddenly have guides that usually describe things I have to worry about. I'm not able to speak. That's the tough parts. But, the reality is Machu Picchu had some of the scariest things, but they have an anchor wire. And boy, if you let me anchor my arms, I've got strong arms. Now I add my legs and my hands are my eyes when they can connect to the side. Were there scary points? Yeah. When you step out that, the room I'm talking about, there's suddenly a 2,000-foot drop and there's a staircase to the side you step up with no bottom. Now, scarier for my friends describing that to me and saying, I don't know how you're going to do this.
Like, I don't want to see this.
Oh yeah, no, and there's some of that. But,
you got to watch the video. It's awesome.
My first time learning to ski, that was sort of the fun experience of that. I got that exact quote. My wife said, I love the first day of video. Second day when I'm now starting wedge turns going down the mountain, she's like, that's really cool. Third day when I've learned parallel turns and I'm flying down the mountain, she's like, no more videos, please. Right? But yeah, Machu Picchu had some of the scariest and probably most dangerous things we've ever dealt with.
Sure.
But I would say that Kilimanjaro had the hardest physical time in some of those just because of the oxygen and the long duration, no sleep, right? Lots of people having altitude sickness. It was challenging.
So what's that like? Because I haven't done that. I've done Machu Picchu and I've been to Peru. I want to understand. That's something I would love to do. Like I was with friends in South Africa, and we've talked about doing that. What is that like? Like guide us through that. Is there a base camp you go to? Is it a 2-day event, a 1 day, or what does that look like?
So a 7-day event, and you can do it in different ways, right? And there are people who do it in shorter times, but the basic is they want you to do 6, 7, or 8 days even.
Okay.
And that's so you can acclimatize. And there's some medication that helps you take that, Diamox, and most of our group took it and had better results of it. We took it in the Andes. We had a really good experience with it. When we took it in Kilimanjaro, we had a mixed experience. So different days, different experiences. But really it's this, right? Your blood cannot take the oxygen and transport it the way your muscles need.
Yeah.
So the result of that is your muscles are fatigued and weak. Now digestion needs blood flow and oxygen, so you don't digest food very well. And when that happens, what your body says is, I'm not getting enough oxygen, so your heart pumps faster, which means you can't sleep because your heart's pumping faster. Mm-hmm. So you get no sleep, you can't eat very well, and your muscles are fatigued. And now you're going to hike a pretty massive mountain. And just to give you the immensity of it, right? All of the 4,000 foot peaks in New Hampshire would fit inside the mass of Kilimanjaro.
Sounds miserable. I want to do it.
Now, that said, best experience many of our team ever had. I think Peru overtook that for a few of them. But worst I've ever felt, this is a quote from a good friend of mine, worst I've ever felt having the most amazing experience of my life.
Sounds like parenting.
But it's kind of like the marathons too. Sometimes in the moment, what you realize is this moment, I'm going to have a short time of really hard to get to something fantastic, and then I'm going to have the rest of my life to celebrate and appreciate it. It's worth that few moments of hard to get a lifetime of amazing.
Wow.
Because if you stop on that, if you say, no, I can't do it, then you get that short relief, but then you have a lifetime of regret. That's the wrong equation. That math doesn't work.
Bam. No regrets. No regrets. No regrets. No regrets. I hashtag the shit out of that every single day of my life. That's one of the biggest things that scares me, honestly.
Okay.
I have to touch on this, Randy, because I was quite interested. Before we went live, I could hear some stuff going on in the background, and with technology being what it is, and obviously exponentially just massively growing, driverless cars and all this other stuff. Talk to us about if there's any technology now. Because I mean, when I think about my friends that have been blind, I mean, I know they have a service dog and they have a couple other little things, but with technology being what it is, talk to us about how it aids you in getting around and quote unquote having a normal life.
So technology is amazing, and the difference today from 20 years ago when I first went totally blind is incredible. Some of these things I didn't even envision, and there's more coming. I will. I tell all the time when I'm at schools, they say, what do you think a blind person can't do? And I answer everything they suggest. And almost always it's, drive a car. And I'm like, not yet, but that day is coming. And if I'm talking to fifth graders, I tell them, the race is on. I'm driving before you guys. But the reality is I navigate the world on my own with ease, right? Whether it's with my guide dog, I don't have one presently. I lost my girl to cancer just in the middle of COVID. And it's not really easy to replace one right now. So there'll be a new guide coming, but we replaced a dog, and that, right? My heart loves my dogs. So I want a dog in my world, right? And so we have a rescue pup that's 10 months old in our heart in our home. But you find the technology. My dog and my cane and my phone can access all the apps I need to GPS navigate everywhere I want to go. I can read anything by taking a picture of it, and it scans it, so I can read signs anywhere I want to go. I mean, the world is totally available at my fingertips, or my watch. The other day, I kid you not, I took a phone call on my sunglasses from my watch. I feel like some spy thriller, right? But my sunglasses have their headphones, their Bluetooth headphones that go behind my ears and bone conductive, so my ears are free. They give me everything that's on my phone or my watch if I want. And I didn't have my phone with me. I was using my Apple Watch, but that takes calls, right? I mean, everything is available. But here's the trick. These are tools. Use the tool. Don't be used by the tool. Make sure you're fundamental to do everything you need so that you can do that with or without the tool to a reasonable satisfaction. And these enhance your life when you use them right. That's what I believe.
Tools, Scott. That's what we bring. That's what we bring. Always bringing the tools, man. Jesus, Randy. I seriously, I'm gonna be dead. I'm gonna be dead. I'm always dead honest. I would love to take you around to all these people who are just so victim oriented about where it is and what they're doing. And I preach the hell out of if you don't know how to do something, you live in the greatest time of my existence that you can find the answer to anything. You can learn how to do anything. You can find tools and resources and people that will help you do anything. And people sit there on their own stuff and they don't do anything. And I think it goes back to what you said before, is sometimes we have to have that hard bounce in our life. We have to really experience, the depths of what it is that we're here to experience and have those learning lessons behind it. And that's one thing that we love teaching and giving people tools in our group coaching program, in our shows here, and what we do everywhere else in the world. So thank you for sharing that with me, because the spirit of your determination and your unstoppableness, your attitude, there is nothing, not a single solitary feeling that I get that you are any type of victim, and just such an inspiration. So thank you for sharing that with us. Scott, more questions?
Well, one thing I want to bring up too, and I know Randy and I have talked about this too, and we've got to be cautious with this too, is sometimes, somebody like Randy can be such a beautiful person to look at and say, I can do that too. But you also can create distance between the victim and the ability to get out of victimhood. So they can look at him and say, oh, he's much better than me. And they can sink back in. What I'd love to challenge people to realize is Randy is you. He's a human being.
Yeah.
We're all a human being. Like, we can all tell our story. And one of the things I remember a therapist friend said, I'd always ask her questions like, hey, you know, what do people ask you? What are the biggest things? And she goes, you know what the worst thing is that happens is people come in and they say, well, the thing that I'm going through isn't even a big deal. I mean, look at all the other things. And everyone says the same thing. They say, what I'm going through isn't that big a deal. So the inner voice, that inner critic, is already shutting down the fact that what you're trying to overcome is important. You're saying they can do it, but they're more, you know, they have worse stories than me, and I still can't do it. I would like to get your perspective, Randy, from somebody who's overcome stuff, and we all have, but just tell people that first and foremost, we know whatever you're going through, that you've aligned and said, this is why I'm in victim status. What steps can we get them to take and realize that nobody's a superhero? We're human beings who made heroic action steps. So we took steps, we took big steps. And that's realized, what do we tell these people to realize, listen, we get it. You're struggling, but you don't need to be a victim.
So the guy who wrote the foreword to my book, right? I wrote a biography of my life, really my memoir, and I love it. I've known him since I was in college. He knew me before I was blind, and he said, the thing about Randy is he's totally ordinary. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the smartest guy. He's not anything superlative, except he's determined. And I respect and appreciate that, right? I am pretty ordinary, but I am also pretty determined. And, you know, people often say, right, well, you're so optimistic. You're so absolutely upbeat. And I say, well, wait a second. First off, we're talking and I'm in a good moment. Do I have my moments? Of course I do. We all stumble at times. And I may not be running out to Facebook to say, yep, my life is awful today. That's not my first post of the day. But I have those moments. I get up some days and I'm like, come on, blind again today, really? Right? And the trick for me is that I just don't stay in those moments, because it's like I said earlier, right? We have the choice of how long we're going to be there. But I get it. And, you know, the last part of it is that comparative mindset you get. When I was in the hospital going blind, that first time, I was in the hospital for 2 months, and they put me in a neurological ward, and every patient, every roommate I had really severe cerebral palsy. Couldn't speak. Each one of them couldn't take care of themselves in the situations they were. And I was thinking, look at what they're dealing with. What do I have as a right to complain? And somewhere in that journey, I've learned that, first off, of course, you can compare it. It happens. It's not very productive. The truth is, each of our challenges and problems do belong to us. They're ours. And they are real and they are valid because they are our problems. That does not mean they're overwhelming and we should bow down to them, but it does mean that we should not belittle them or belittle ourselves because we don't happen to have a problem that matches some other problem we want to look at. We've got to acknowledge, it's part of resiliency, is acknowledge where you are. What do you have? So, you know, hiking, where are you on the map? In the case of problems, it's acknowledging, okay, here's who I am. Here's the problem I'm facing. And I got a choice. Again, quit or figure out how I'm going to grow. And that gets right into the problem solving. And that actually gets right into the work you guys do and why people might start out reaching out to you. When I want to problem solve, right, I use this classic example because it's the simplest. My first day of total blindness, I was out at guide school and I wanted to brush my teeth. But how the heck am I going to know how much toothpaste is coming out and whether it's going on my toothbrush? And the answer is I blew it. A lot more came out than I wanted, and it went a lot more places. And, you know, as frustrating as that is, right, to get toothpaste all over the place, it's not the end of the world. It's a small world problem. But in my moment, that morning, I had a little breakdown, and I really wanted to throw my toothpaste into the mirror, which wasn't going to help any of the situation, right? And that's my frustration rule, right? Frustration leads to failure. And anytime we're frustrated and we're reacting instead of responding, I say practice your ABCs. Awareness of frustration. Awareness that you're having an emotional reaction, which is not as productive. So once you're aware, you go to step 2. Breathe. Deep breaths. Because it slows you down because it takes time for you to do that. And because physiologically, breathing calms us down. so that we can get to see the third step, which is consider what you really want to do. And for me, what I realized is I was surrounded by blind people who had guide dogs or were training with me, and they'd probably been solving this problem. And so I asked them, what do you do? They gave me the easy solution. It's my toothpaste, hold it to my mouth, squeeze it into my mouth where I can feel it, hold it up and brush my teeth, and now no spill. 22 years later, my bathroom counter sink is probably cleaner than yours, Scott.
But I didn't even think about that. That's such a great,
it's so obvious, but yeah.
I solved the problem by finding somebody who had solutions. What do you guys do when you're coaching people? You've been through it, you've experienced it, or you've learned enough about it to share pathways to them or with them. Now, they have to make the choice to do it. They have to dedicate to that, but understanding that those pathways are there. People have been having problems for a long time, and they may be slightly different, but of course solutions exist. And it starts with those same things. No excuses, own your problem, and then own the solution.
Amen, Randy. Thank you so much, man. We've already been talking for 51 minutes, and literally I'm looking at Scott. I'm like, we could easily go for another hour, but we're gonna have to have you back on the show because, dude, seriously, you are just spitting fire after fire after fire. It's straight, it's concise, it's easy to understand, it's easily applicable. And I say easy to apply, but obviously challenging to carry out. That's not diminishing anybody's effort and what it takes. Because Jacqueline's asking a question here. She goes, another question: how do you still kick ass in your 60s? I think, Jacqueline, the answer to that is exactly what we've been saying for the last 50 minutes is the fact that you have to get up, you have to have your why, you have to have your passion, you have to figure out that you're here to learn lessons, and 60 could be the new 40. Honestly, when you think about medical technology and all the different advances, wouldn't it be a waste to live to 110 and go look back at 60 and go, I was just getting fucking started. I look at it this way: when it's my turn to go, I want to go doing something, helping somebody, being in the moment, celebrate. I want to go full steam ahead. I don't want to be going like, oh, well, maybe I should do this. I want to be going. So whether you're 60, 70, 80, I say keep going, keep your why, have the right people around, everything that Randy said. So go back and listen to this. But I have one last parting question for you, Randy, and we got to wrap up. What's next for you, and where can people get a hold of you? So what are some of your next upcoming challenges, and where can people get a hold of you?
So I just did in December a 54-mile run. That's my longest run to date. I just set my marathon record in September. I did a 3-hour, 25-minute marathon. And so my next goal is I'm going to take on a 100-mile run sometime in the spring is my goal. So that's probably the distance run. In the mental aspect, because that's kind of a physical aspect, I had a school reach out to me, said, we love your book. It's high school, adult aged, and we got a bunch of middle school students that really deserve to hear your story. Would you consider working with us to get a version for them? So I'm gonna take on that task, I think. And I think just in the philanthropical world, right, I speak to students, and COVID hit, and I had spoken to almost 100,000 students in schools. And, are you stopped by that? No, we just went virtual. And what I realized is it's a benefit in some ways, because now I don't have a geographical limitation. I'm going to be doing a presentation, all over the country. I've got one scheduled down in Texas, near to you, Scott, Plano, that just called in. And here I am in New Hampshire. So instead of reducing my message, it expands my ability to give the message. So those are things that are on my list. And where people can reach me is I have a website, 2020visionquest.org. So that's the numbers, 2020visionquest.org. And, we're all on all social media, YouTube, we're out there. I'm very responsive, reach out. And I've got a couple of TED Talks as well as a book.
Cool. And just for your benefit, Randy, we've got your website streaming across the screen, so everybody can see that and definitely connect with you. Go to his website, check him out. I mean, it's just absolutely mind-blowing what you've accomplished. You've already inspired me. So we're so happy to have you on the show. Scott, final questions, final thoughts before we send Randy back to the green room and we close out the show?
I think that something that would be really fun to do is, we're talking about how do we start and give people tools and, get ourselves out of that victimhood. I think there's an amazing process when you're going to be training for this 100-mile run. I've got a good friend, Jeffrey Stuckles, and he actually has done that one in, what's the one in Colorado? It's Leadville. Thank you. So he's done that one. And so I would love to get the two of you on here together and talk about that training process, because he didn't start running till his 40s, and he just turned 50 last year, and he's done that. So when people are saying I can't, I would love to hear you guys talking through the process of training, because he's running alongside David Goggins, and you know who he is. And there's another example of a person who said, enough is enough. Victimhood is over. Here's the real me. And so I'd love to have that talk about how we can talk about one step. It's literally go outside and go for a half a mile run and say, I can't. And then you shut up and do it again. And then all of a sudden it's 20 miles, 30 miles. I mean, it blows me away that he's in Leadville going up and down at 9,000, 10,000, 12,000 feet of elevation for 100 miles. But I want to get you guys on to talk about that, because I think there's so much value in talking to people about that one step in front of another, and that you can. So I'm amazed with you, which you know. Loved having you here. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for what you do. Right, I still think my favorite value of humanity is kindness, and you guys got that in spades, helping people get to where they should be.
Awesome, Randy. Thank you so much. We're going to put you back in the green room for a second. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back there with you in just a minute. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, 56 minutes, still under an hour. Scott, we did it again. We did it again. I could keep going. I have like 10 more questions at least to ask Randy, but we're definitely have Randy back on the Unfiltered Experience. What's your takeaway with that conversation, man? Because I'm just blown away.
So the biggest thing, and I love the fact that he talked about positive adversity versus negative adversity, because so many of us wait for a kickstart, literally a kick in the pants. And so it's almost scary, because when we look at this, I think too many times people say he's different than me. And if you really listen to him talk, he's saying, I'm a human being who suddenly goes blind and says, I quit. I can't do this. This is horrible. And then says, no, wait. And then makes the decision to shift gears and say, this is not going to define me. And honestly, I don't know what I would do in that situation. I've got all the right words to tell you what I think I would do, but I'll say this. I bet I would do something like Randy, because I see what he's doing and he's saying all the right things, and I've done them in other areas of my life. And so I would say, if you don't have that negative adversity in your life, create that why. Create that why that Randy's doing, that you're doing, Chris, that I'm doing. And that positive adversity will be a byproduct. That plan will lay itself out. You'll find the vision. Whether you see or don't see, you'll find the vision. You will achieve it. I promise, because you align to that why. So again, you don't need a horrible thing to happen to you to be massively successful. And I think that we need to realize that, and we can make the changes right now.
Absolutely, Scott. I couldn't agree more. That's beautifully said. Beautifully said. I think for me, it's and as you were talking, I was thinking like, okay, how am I going to summarize this? And I have so many different things in my mind, but honestly, I love what he said about, okay, you have a situation you're in, and what do? You get resourceful. You have to figure out, okay, what's the next best step? And all throughout this week, I've been talking to people, and some of the reason everybody thinks that we have to take these giant steps, like you and I discuss all the time in our coaching program, like they have to make a massive perspective shift or a massive discovery. And it's just like that constant, okay, I can see things different. I'm part of the solution. I'm not part of the problem. Tomorrow, I'm going to do one thing that moves me forward, and just continue to do that. And it's compound interest. And I love what Randy's message is. He goes, if you come across a situation, then you figure it out. You keep going. You have make sure you have the right resources. You do your planning. You're effective at it. You have a mission in your mind of what it is that you want to accomplish, and you make the commitment to carry that out. Jacqueline, to answer your question, that's exactly the formula for being successful. So I love how Randy said that, and just the pure determination and realization that life is short, and I could either sit here and wallow about it and have a pity party, as somebody has said in the comments, or you can actually get off your ass and go, hey man, I'm here for a reason. I'm here to go share my light and my brightness and go connect with other fellow humans and make the world a better place. Who it is, what we do. And for being here live, and your comments and your questions and your engagement, please share this out. Go impact other people. People need to hear Randy's message and be impacted by this, because we have a lot of people that are sitting right now and they're stuck. They're stuck between what the opinions of what they had and what they want and everything else. And Randy's message can center punch that. So for me personally, those are my final thoughts. Scott, what about you?
That's it, Chris. There was also, I'd like to add one last thing. It's a Kurt Vonnegut poem that I just posted on social media. And he was talking about, you don't have to go run 100 miles. You don't have to do this. You don't have to be the best at this. You don't have to be the best at everything. Do things. Randy was talking about those little things that you do because you enjoy. If your idea of walking around the neighborhood for a mile and saying hi to every kitten is what you want to do, go do that. Do something. Be the best at something. Challenge yourself. When I say the best, be the best because you're enjoying it a lot. And so it doesn't have to be something massive. just go out and overcome your fear of living this life and live it to the fullest and get experiences and enjoy yourself. And whether Randy's somebody who you say, hey, I want to be like that, or whether, it's somebody else, just go be the best you can be. Find your brilliance, enjoy yourself, find your why. That's it.
We love you guys. You guys are our unfiltered crew. We love you. We love you. Love you. Make sure you interact with us in the group page. And that's one of the places we want to keep connecting with you guys. And if you have situations, issues that are going on, and you feel like you're stuck, you feel like you have nobody else to talk to, you always have Scott and I almost said Chris and I, because I was looking at your name. you always have us. I mean, really, that's why Scott and I do this, not to make money or anything else, but to truly share our journeys, our experience, the people that we know in our life, the people that we're meeting that can inspire you and give you those tools in your toolbox, as Randy so eloquently said many, many times. If you have something going on and you feel like you have nobody to talk to, please reach out to us. We know a lot of people are suffering, and you always have an open door with us. So we appreciate you guys being here with every Friday night at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We love you guys. Go have a kick-ass weekend. Stay unstoppable. We love you guys. And we'll see you next Friday night for Jimmy Dennis. You do not want to miss that. All right. We love you, Randy Pierce. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next week.